This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. I believe you understood whatever we discussed yesterday. If you have any questions so far, you can ask before I start. At high level, as part of this course, we are going to understand about the UI layer, all these topics, and the business logic, the Apex language, and also the database commands, everything we discuss as part of this course. To start with, we started with the Apex, the programming language, which is case insensitive. And we are trying to understand some of the basics of the programming so that we can, going forward, start writing the programs and see how exactly we can work with the programs. So the basic terminology, if you compare with the English language and try to understand, I think you can sync up. Here, we write the program. The program is a set of statements in a proper order. If you keep and when you provide some input to the program, you take that data and apply some logic and give the result. Most of the times, that's what the program will do. We are trying to understand what are the different types of statements we see when you open some program. So at high level, so these are the types of statements: memory statements and arithmetic logical statements and different types. And yesterday, the memory statement, the purpose of the memory statement is when you deal with the data, either input data or after doing the calculation to hold the information, system needs memory. So that memory we allocate using memory statements. For that, we have the data type. We have the primitive data types and the non-primitive data types. Primitive data types means when you allocate the memory by using the primitive type, whatever the memory system allocates directly into that, the value whatever we supply will be stored. But non-primitive, we cannot assign the value directly. The non-primitive type is called by reference. The variable will hold the reference, the location of the data where it is. That's the major difference. And also yesterday we defined some of the statement. On day-to-day, we call whatever the name we give to the memory, we call that as a variable. Identifier or data member or variable, everything is same. On day-to-day, we call as variables. So we define some of the primitive data type variables, and also we build with all those variables. And now later we also just I gave some examples of the non-primitive type. For non-primitive type, we have to allocate the memory by using the new operator. If you bring the data from database, going forward when we discuss about the queries, that time directly the data whatever it returns, we can assign. So when it assign, it will assign the location of that data where it is there in the database. So maybe going forward, you'll get more clarity on that.
So,
yeah.
So all the time for when you're referring for this kind of data, the point goes to the it will not bring the data into the memory from the table. Is it correct?
Yeah, the data will be there somewhere in the
so all the time it refers to the rows. That row address will be here.
Yeah.
In the memory.
Yeah, assume that it is a table, right? When you say account is a table. Okay. It will allocate a temporary memory. When you are creating new one, it will allocate the memory, and that location it will refer.
So let us say if there are 1,000 records in the table, so the memory is
it might return multiple records, and to hold that we have a concept called collections. So when we reach the topic, I'll explain how exactly it will hold. Okay. Now this is one row in the table. If you want to hold
Okay, okay. Now I
Again,
got it. It's not only one row. Okay.
yeah. So it is one row to hold
Got
multiple rows. So we have a topic. Still, we did not start. That time I will
Okay.
explain. Okay.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah. And also we started understanding about the arithmetic and logical statements. Um, so just we started understanding assignment operator, right hand side value it will assign to left hand side, and the arithmetic operators. Again, there are different classifications. We call as unary operator when you use like this. Internally, the meaning of this one is it will increment the I value by 1. I minus minus means it will decrement the value by 1. So let me show these things practically, maybe so that you can get more clarity on this. So I'm going to open Salesforce. Some of you, if you are new to Salesforce, so I recommend you to go to developer.salesforce.com website and click on sign up and register for one of the free accounts. Okay. So already we signed up and we have the account for this batch. So now once you log into Salesforce, you need to click on their icon and go to developer console. So developer console, as a developer, for us to do with the development, whatever we need, mostly everything will be available in the developer console. So it is like a web-based IDE, the development environment. As a developer, whatever we need, everything will be accessible from this. So I'm opening this one, and so far we still not writing the programs. Still, we are discussing the basics only. So when you have some statements, still we are not writing the program. So before we place those statements in the program, to see how our statements and logic is behaving, so we have debug. So one of the option here, you need to click on debug and you need to click on open execute anonymous window. So when you open this one, this will open. So here we can write the Apex statements. No need to follow any program structure, nothing. Just write a statement and see how it is giving the result. So such kind of place. So here just I'm saying unary operator and it will increment the I value by 1. Right? So let's define a variable and see when you execute the I++, that statement, what is happening. So to define a variable, to hold the value, so we need to use the data type. I'm defining integer data type. I'm holding, right, I or count or whatever. Let's say count. By default, I'm assigning the count value as 0. Right? So now, after that, I want to increment this count value by 1. In general, how we can write? You can write like this: count equal to count plus 1. This is how we write. So if you don't want to write this much, one of the shortcut to increment the value by 1, so we need to use count plus plus. The internal meaning of this count plus plus is this: it will increment the count value by 1. So here I'm giving slash slash. So this is for commenting. When I give slash slash and after that, if I write something, system consider that it is a comment. Okay, now we have two statements. One is a memory statement. We're allocating integer memory. Count is the variable. We're assigning the default value as 0. And we're writing one more statement. This one is an example of the unary operator. Count plus plus, it will increment the I value by 1. Sorry, this count value by 1. So now print and see, right? When you print only as a developer, when you see in the result, then only we can know, okay, it is working, right? So to print in general, it is very common for us to print whatever we need in the log. If you don't print, also system generate the log. But looking into the log and understanding the information, whatever we need, we need to take a lot of time and see many lines. Obviously, if we have many statements, it's very, very difficult for us as a developer to look into entire log and understand. So that's why we print whatever we want in the log. To print, so we use system.debug. Okay, here for now, don't bother about what is system, what is debug. Internally, this is a class and this is a method, but still we did not reach that point. For now, just for printing purpose, just remember system.debug, and inside that I want to print the value of the count. Okay, but while printing, if I only print it, I don't know the value for which purpose we are printing. In a readable way, if you want to know what is the value we are printing, so I'm giving a string, right? String should be enclosed in the single quote. I'm saying count colon. So a string value is there. For that, count is a variable which is holding some number. This is not a dynamic value. It is a string which we are typing whatever we need. Always the value is same. The count can be anything based on what value they store. So the string and the dynamic value, if you want to combine by using plus operator, we concatenate. Okay. So now in the log while printing, it will print as count colon space, and the count value will be 1. Right. So let's see how this is going to execute. And after executing, if you want to open the log automatically, you can check this checkbox and you can click on execute, so that it is executed. And this is the log. If you see here, you can see how many bytes it allocates and all those things. So this is the first statement, and the bytes 3 bytes. So internally it is allocating all these many bytes, and here finally count value. This is in the line number. So the count value in line number 2, it is becoming as 1. But anyway, we don't bother about to see everything. Only whatever we are printing. If you want to see, if you see here, there is a checkbox debug only. For us, it is easy to filter by debug. This is what we are printing. Count colon, the count value is 1, because count plus plus means it will increment the value by 1. So if you execute this statement 2 times, then I value will be 2. Right? So let's say I'll say count after increment. Now, if I say like this, it will decrement the count value by 1. Right? So I recommend you to play with this at initial stage, so that you will gain some confidence how this will be behaving. So now I'm decrementing, and after that again I'm printing. Right, now after this, the count value will be 1. Here the count value will be 2, because initially count value is 0. When this statement executes, 0 plus 1, 1. Now when this statement executes, 1. Here the count became 1. 1 again, it increment by 1. 2. Here it will print 2. Here again we are decrementing. 2 minus 1. 1. It will print that 1. So that's what will happen. Right? So after maybe decrement, execute. It is executed. Click on debug only. Now it is giving the results. So this is the way how we play. Okay, maybe for your reference, I'm just keeping here. I also recommend you to go there and execute and see how it is behaving. In the same way, binary operator. So binary operator, when you have a big expression, so system, even though we have many like this, if you have a complex expression, system will deal with only 2 values and one operator at a time. The result again it will combine with the other one. Like that it will proceed. Okay. So let me give one example for that. Maybe to avoid the confusion, if I keep this one again, type the other one, people are confusing. I'm removing this. And here again I'm defining one of the variable. So integer result. So let's say here number 1, okay, is equal to 10. So number 2 is equal to 5. So number 3 is equal to 3. So I have a statement where we're allocating values. So there are 3 numbers and the default values we are assigning. This is also a number, but we did not assign anything. So in general, so when you allocate the memory, when you define a variable, and if you don't assign any value, by default system holds null. Okay, null is a keyword. Null meaning nothing is there. That's the meaning. Okay, on day to day we deal with the null. Okay, so when you define a variable and if you don't assign any value, by default system holds null. Maybe to understand, since we are starting newly, to understand really how it holds, just I'm printing in the log, right? Whatever the result, just I'm printing and showing. We have defined variable, but we did not assign anything. By default, the value is null. Null meaning nothing is there. Variable is defined, but value is not assigned. So that's the meaning. Okay. So now before we print that, so here I'll say result is equal to number 1 multiplied by number 2 minus number 3. So what is the result we get? Even I also don't know. But to know, we have to see the operator precedence. If I have the clarity, system gives priority for minus or system give priority for star, then I can confidently say what is the result. Even I did not remember. So that's why people don't like to remember how it calculates. If you leave it like this, maybe you might be expecting both should be multiplied and after that it should subtract. But if the precedence, as per the operator precedence, let's say there is more priority for this, that time it will subtract these two and multiply. That time whatever the result we get is different. That's why. So my intention for this is I want to multiply these two and after that subtract. So when you give the separation with the brackets, then confidently we can say these two will be calculated separately. Whatever the result is there, from that result it will subtract. Now I have the clarity. 10 multiplied by 5, 50, 50 minus 3, 47 will be the result. Okay. So now let's execute and see. So what is the result we are getting? So this is one of the example for the binary operator. Even though we have many values, many operators, system deals with only 2 values and 1 operator at a time. You see the result is 47. So let's say I'm removing. Okay, now as per the operator precedence, if it is giving priority to this, still you will see 47. But if it gives priority to this, you will see something else as a result. Okay, so let's execute and see. I'm not giving and see what is the result we get. Same. That means it is giving more priority to the star. So like that. Okay. So always it's better to place these things. So this is one of the example for the binary operator. Okay. So now let's take one example on the ternary operator. So ternary operator. So when you have the expression, we have an expression. If that is true, one of the expression will be executed. If that is false, one of the other expression will be executed. So that time we use this ternary operator. Now for us to understand in a better way, so again same thing, we have two numbers, and now maybe result also. Let me define result. So now what I want to check, if the number 1 is greater than number 2, right? That is a condition, question mark. If the condition is true, okay, so what I want whichever is the bigger number is there, that one I want. Okay, if the number 1 is greater than number 2, that means number 1 is a big number. I am giving number 1. If number 1 is not greater than number 2, then right, else in else scenario it will execute, it will take this expression value, right? Number 2 value it will take. So ultimately in the result, so whatever the bigger number is there, that number you will see, right? So out of these two, 10 is the bigger number. In the result you will see 10, right? Execute, debug only, 10 you will see, right? Now if I give this, now you will see the result, it will go to this else part, right? Number 1, 10 greater than 500, no, it will take this one. Now in the result you will see 500. Execute and click on debug only. Now you are seeing 500, right? So this is one of the example of the ternary operator. So here we have one condition and two operators. Okay, this is the condition and the question mark is true, this part false, this part. Okay, so just understand. Now we also have the other types, relational operators. Mainly we use these relational operators for the comparison purpose. Already we used that. So this one, number 1 is greater than number 2. We are comparing. If number 1 is greater than number 2, it will return true. If it is not greater than number 2, it will return false, right? So all these relational operators result in either true or false. Okay, so double equal to, single equal to is for the assignment, assigning the right hand side value to the left hand side. If you want to do the comparison, we use double equal to. Okay, and also we have not equal to. Not equal to we can also represent like this, either this one or this one, both almost same, both meaning is not equal to. And also we have less than equal to, greater than equal to. All these are the different operators. So now if I say number 1 is equal to number 2, it is not that I am assigning, it is that we are comparing. This will result in either true or false. That's what will happen. Okay, and also not equal to, greater than, less than, all those things we use by using the relational operators. Ultimately all these things will result in either true or false. Maybe for you to understand, so I'm just removing, maybe we have two numbers, I'm just checking, maybe equal to, we are comparing equal to, in the log it will, right? So just print like this, equal to colon, and after that the result, but the boolean appending like this is not supported. So let's say simply I'm just doing the comparison. Number 1 is equal to number 2. All we are doing, we are comparing. If both are same, it will become true. It will print true, but we know that both are not same. It will print false, right? So we know that both are not same, right? Not equal to. Right? Both are not equal to. Here it will print true, right? Here it will print false. We know that. Here it print true, and greater than, less than, right? So all those things, greater than, equal to, less than, equal to, greater than, number one, greater than number two, no, false, right? Maybe when I say less than, it is true. Number one, 10 less than 500. So like that, just I'm just showing it results in either true or false. It is generating the log. Click on debug only, and if you see here whatever we're thinking, in the same way it is giving the results. So these are the examples for the relational operators. Whenever there is a need for comparison, we use the relational operators. So now let's say one of the requirement is they want to check two conditions. So number one should not be equal to number two. That is one condition. And also one more condition. Number one should be greater than number two. Both should be satisfied. That's the requirement. So when you have two conditions like this, and if you want to combine, so what you want both to satisfy, or any one of the condition to satisfy. For that we use logical operators. Okay, you want AND or OR. For those things we have to use the logical operators. Okay, so here for us we have AND, OR, NOT. All these are the different logical operators. But directly we cannot use this directly. Okay, please give me a few seconds. I'll bring my charger. Hello, sorry, yeah, I'm back. So now we have these logical operators. Directly we cannot use AND or 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 NOT in the Apex program. In the Apex program, this AND we represent like this, or we represent like this, not we represent like this. Okay, so these are the things we use when we deal with the Apex program. Now let's say here both conditions should be satisfied. So for that what we do, okay, so here, so maybe I'm removing everything, and here we have condition one, number one is equal to number two, but we need, it should not be equal to number two, and they want one more condition to satisfy. Number one should be greater than number two. But if you see 10 not equal to 500, this is true. But 10 greater than 500, no, this is false. When you apply AND condition, AND means both should be satisfied. So the final result, because this is true, but one of the condition is false, finally the result is false. So when you deal with AND, it expects both conditions should be true. Then only it will become true. Otherwise, so it won't become true. Okay, so this result in false. Okay, So, but when it will become true, when you have end condition, so when it becomes true, if both are satisfied, right? Now, if you see as per this condition, number 1, 10 not equal to 500, correct, true. This result in true, and this one 10 less than 500, yes, this also true. If both are true, right? So here in the first expression, what is happening? The first condition is true, and the second condition is false. Finally, it became as false, right? And means all should be satisfied. But in this current situation, both are true. The first expression is true, and the second expression is also true, right? Finally, the result is true, right? If everything is satisfied, it will become true. So that is about when you deal with the end. So same thing, when you deal with R condition, what will happen? So when you deal with the R condition, instead of end, if I give R here, right? R means on day to day also we say, right? On day to day when you speak, we say R, right? R means anyone. So here first one is true, second one is false. Okay, at least one condition is satisfied, the final result is true, right? Suppose if both are true, so now if you see both are true, the result is true. So when it will become false? If everything is false. Okay, for example, again I'm copying this. So now I am saying both are equal. I know that both are not equal. It is false. And I'll say again number 1 greater than number 2. No, both are false. When both are false, then finally the result is false. At least one condition needs to be true when you deal with R. Okay. So here also same thing. So let's say here when you give this one, both are false. So anyway, if any one is false, the result is false for n. Both are false also, the result is false. These are some possible combinations. Just I'm trying to show you. Okay. Maybe one more combination. Maybe this become false and this become true. Again, that I think you can add it and understand. Okay, just I'm trying to show how exactly it will work. So here, make sure to give R. When you use R, these are the results you will see. And not, right? We have not. So not means reverse. Suppose say, so this entire thing, what it is giving? This entire expression is giving false, right? For that expression, all I do is not of this condition. So since it is false, this will become true, right? If it is false, it will become true. If it is true, it will become false. That's what will happen. That is a not operator. Just I'm showing. Okay, so just execute. And see. So maybe if you see this, you will understand. The first one, false, right? One is true and the other one is false, but end means both should be satisfied. First one is false, second one is true. Because both are true, it is true. Both are false, finally result is false. This R means any one is true, finally the result is true. Right? This one. And here also both are true, then it is true. If everything is false, then it is false. Right? So same condition. For that I am giving not. Not means reverse. It is false, it will become true. So this is how this logical operator will work. Okay, so I recommend you to play with this and understand. Okay. So just execute. Already we have executed. Let's copy this and keep for our reference. So logical operator. Okay. So now this is one of the example. Just I recommend you to play with these things. So that's it. So we know about these kind of statements. Now the other type, conditional state. In general, on day to day, based on some conditions, we decide whether to execute some statements or not. To control which statement you want to execute and which statement we don't want to execute, we use these conditional statements. So there are different flavors. So mainly at high level, we have if conditions and case switch. So we have one switch condition. But if you know if condition, I think everything you can achieve. To avoid the confusion, just I'm going to explain about the if conditions and different flavors of the if condition. So one of the type we call as simple if. Simple if means just we give some condition. If the condition is true, it will enter and execute some statements. If condition is not true, it won't enter and it won't execute any statement. That is the simple if condition. Maybe to understand that, again, I'm removing this. And here we have two variables, number 1 and number 2. Here I'm writing a if statement. If I'm giving condition, right? Here we are using relational operator, right? Number 1 greater than number 2. That time it should enter and execute. So maybe to know it is executed, I'm just printing inside if. But we know here 10 is greater than 500. No, it won't enter. When you execute, nothing will happen. You don't see this printing because that statement is not executed, right? So that's what will happen. This is a red that is not executed. So that is the simple if condition. So this is one of the example. So let's say sometimes if condition is not satisfied, since it is not executing these statements, they want to execute the other set of statements. If condition whatever they are looking, if it is not satisfied, somehow they want to execute some set of statements by default. Then we use else, if else, one of the if flavor, if else condition. So we give if the condition is satisfied, it will enter inside and execute the statements. Not satisfied, so what are the other set of statements you want to execute? We keep here, right? That is if else. So same thing here, I'm giving else, and here I'll say system.debug. I'll say it is inside else. So now this time this statement will be executed and we'll see this as result. Execute debug only and inside the else. So this is how we use. So this is the if else type of condition. Okay. So now the other one, if one condition is not satisfied, so I want to check for the other conditions. I have 4 or 5 conditions to check. If none of those are satisfied, then it should execute the else. So if you want like that, we have one more flavor called else if. We give if condition. If it is not satisfied, we check for one more condition. Else if, again some condition. and it execute. If that is also not satisfied, again one more condition. If that is also not satisfied, again one more condition. So like this. So this we call as else if. Now here in between I'm adding else if number 1 is greater than number 2. No, it fails. Now I'm checking, is number 1 is greater than 0, right? So maybe I'll say inside first else if. Okay, again I'm checking one more condition. Is it greater than 5? Again I'm printing. Now I'm just asking in general. So what do you think is the result? Because when people start newly with the programming, they're thinking in a different way. So now what do you think? Number 1, 10 greater than 500, no. Know that it won't execute. But here 10 greater than 0, it will enter inside and it will execute. But 10 also greater than 5, right? Both will be executed or any one will be executed. So here people are confused. Okay, so the thing is, any one, even like this, if you keep 100 blocks, when you deal with the else if, any one of the block will be executed. You know what will happen here in the second else if? Here, maybe this is second else if. Here, since the condition is satisfied, 10 greater than 0, it executes that and stop. It won't check for the other conditions. Even though the other conditions meets, it won't bother about that. First, it will check. Let's say if this is satisfied, the first if condition itself, if it's satisfied, it won't execute remaining. Okay, only in failure case. If this is failed, only that time it will execute. If this is failed, only that time it will execute. If this is failed, only that time it will execute. Okay, that's the behavior of the else if, any one of the block. Now, if you execute, it should print this one. You see, right, inside the first else if. This is the example of the else if. Just I'm placing here for your reference. And the other type, there is one more flavor. Let's say I want to, even this is satisfied or not satisfied, I want to execute this one also. If it is satisfied, not satisfied, I want to execute other thing also. So when you have like that, right? So what we'll do, we keep all if conditions one after other, right? So if you have a requirement, whether this is satisfied or not satisfied, still you want to check this one and execute, still you want to check this one and execute, we give like this. This one we call as if series, right? Now if you execute, you will see two results, right? It will enter this and enter into this. Execute. Click on debug only inside the first else if and inside the second else if. Okay, so that is the if series. It's one of the flavor if series. Just printing this, I mean placing here, and the one of the other flavor nested if. Inside the if condition, again if we give if condition, that we call as nested if. Right? So let's say this one. First I want to check number 1 greater than 0. Okay. So later I want to change this. Right? So this kind of type we call as nested if. Maybe you can also use if else if. All those combination we can use. In general, inside the if you give if condition, people say nested if. Right? What is the result? We'll see. Both will be printed. Right? Because number 1 10 greater than 0, 10 greater than 5. Both will be executed. Maybe the text whatever I'm printing, I did not change it, but it is entered and executed. So that's it. These are about the conditional statements. As soon as we understand this, we are good. Okay. So any questions on these conditional statements? Okay. So one of the next type, the looping statements. Sometimes we need to execute the same statement again and again, maybe 1,000 times, 10,000 times, based on the requirement. Right? So in those situations, when there is a need to repeat same statements execution repeatedly multiple times, we use this looping or controlling statements. So we have mainly different flavors of loops: while loop, do while loop, for loop. In for we have two flavors: index based for loop and for each loop. Most of the times we use for loop. Yeah. While and do while very rare. But as soon as you know, it is your wish as a developer. Every time if you want to use while, you can use while if you feel that is suitable. But in general, on day to day, when you see this, people feel more comfortable and use this one most of the times. But anyway, we should know the syntax for everything. So first, let's see what is the syntax of the while loop. How exactly this will work. The while loop, first initialization. So in general, when we deal with the loops, we go based on some counter number, right? So let's say you need to execute for 10 times. Right? First we start from 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, or start from 1, 1, 2, 3, right? Until it reaches 10, we allow to execute. So the variable which hold the count is very important. So that for initialization, first we do initialization, some counter variable we initialize, and after that while we give the condition until that condition is met, will keep on enter inside the while loop and execute all the statements and make sure to use the counter, right? Either increment or decrement based on how you are looping. If you miss this one, it will try to execute infinite times. The condition never fails. Infinite times it will try to enter and execute, keep on, which is very, very dangerous. Okay. So this is the syntax. Let's write one loop and see how exactly it works. Now here I'm clearing. So now for our initialization purpose, I'm taking integer. In general, when you start loops as a standard, we start the loop variables with I. Let's say inside loop again, if there is one more loop, we say J, I, J, K, L, so like that. So in general, as a standard, people start the looping variables with I. Yeah, I'm also following the same standard. I value I'm assigning with 0. Now this is the initialization, right? This is nothing but the initialization. Now while here we need to give the condition. Let's say I want to execute this for 10 times. I less than 10. Okay, so first time 0 less than 10, yes, it enters inside and print whatever you want. So let's say I'm printing whatever the I value is there, that I'm printing. Right? I is 0, 0 less than 10 enters inside 0. It will print a 0. Then I want to increment I value. If you miss this one, right? Let's say if you don't do this one, very, very dangerous. When you execute, system will try to execute infinite times. Practically infinite times, the system cannot execute. After a certain point of time, it will throw some exception. Exception means at runtime, while executing the code, whatever the error we get, we call that as exception. Okay, so it will give timeout exception. Okay, CPU time limit exceeded. Because infinite times there is no ending. In general, when we start newly, so we do these kind of mistakes, and we see we face big problem due to this. Okay, so we should be very careful when you deal with the looping statements. Okay, so here if you see system.limit exception, apex the CPU time limit exceeded. Okay, so internally when you execute the code, there is a maximum time limit for the code. If the code is taking more than that time, you see these kind of results. Okay. Now that's why increment. If you increment, what will happen? 0, right? 0 incremented by 1. Next time again 1 less than 10. Print 1. Increment by 2. 2 less than 10. It will print 2. 3. It will become 3 here. So it will continue. Once I become 10, 10 less than 10, it fails. It won't enter. So that means 0 to 9. Total 10 times this loop will be executed. So this is the while loop. So click on execute. Click on debug only. And if you see 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 until 9. So we are seeing everything. So this is the while loop. So for your reference, I'm just copying and place here. This is the while loop. And we also have do while. So what is the difference between while and do while? Only one difference. When you deal with the do while, irrespective of the condition, all the statements will be executed for one time. Okay, let me take the example. Same thing. So here, same example, right? I'm giving value as 100. So what is the result you see? 100 less than 10. It's not meeting. It fails. Nothing will be printed. Right? You don't see anything in the log printing. Because first time itself the condition is failed. Okay. You see nothing is there. Right? So this time, if you use do while, first we use do. And then we give the condition. This is do while. When you use do while, what will happen? Irrespective of the condition. First time, it won't bother about checking the condition. All statements in the code, all the statements in the block will execute one time. It will enter and it will print 100, increment the value by 1, that is 101 less than 10 fails. Next time it won't enter. Okay, now you will see 100 printed in the log. Right? Let's execute and see. Right, you are saying it is printing 100, right? So this is one of the example of the do while. All at least one time all the statements will be executed. Now again, if I give this one as 0, what do you think is the result? If the condition is satisfied from first time, for while condition, whatever the result you see, same thing here also you see. Okay, only when the condition not meets, that time you will see the difference with the do while. As soon as the condition meets, exactly same result of the while loop you are seeing. Okay, so that's the do while loop. So if you know concept, when you work as a developer, based on the logic, we decide which one is better and we use that. So these are some of the conditions. So now the other flavor is for loop, which is very, very important, and mostly we use this for loop. In for loop also, for each loop we use most of the times. I'll explain how it works. So now first see for loop. For loop, everything here itself. Initialization, condition, increment or decrement, everything here only. Here the statements, whatever. Okay, now let's go here, removing for initialization, the loop counter variable, right? I is equal to 0. Now I'm checking I less than 10, I plus plus. Okay, now here I'm printing that I value, debug, and I'm printing the I value. So now here, how exactly this will work, right? So just to show you, right, this part will be executed only one time. Only one time this will be executed. So first time I value is 0, and here it will print I value to 0. And after printing here, what it will do, so how exactly it will? So first it will check this. First it becomes 0, 0 less than 10, yes. It will go here and it will print that one. After that, it will increment the I value by 1. Now I value is 1. Again, it will check for this condition. 1 less than 10, yes. It will print this one. And again, after that, it will increment the I value by 1. So now it will become 2, right? Again, it will check this one. If it is true, again, it will. So it will mostly iterate over this. This part will execute only one time. Okay. So that is about that, how exactly it will work. So now if you see execute, we will see the result as 0 to 9, total 10 times. Okay. So this is the index based for loop. One of the example. Mostly we use this one. Okay. So first time I is 0, 0 less than 10, it will print it and increment by 1, 1 less than 10, print it. Again 2, 2 less than 10, 3 less than 10, 10 less than 10 fails. Then it won't enter. So that's what will happen. Okay, so here just copy this for your reference and placing here. So one of the next final part is the for each loop. So for this, we should aware of one of the concept called collections. Still, I did not explain about collections because once we start with that, it will be more meaningful if I explain about that after discussing about the database commands. For now, just I'm taking some freedom to write the collection and show you. But for now, if you don't understand the collection, how it works, no need to bother about that. So in the upcoming topic, we'll discuss in more detail. Okay. Now, in general, collection means it holds multiple values. In general, when you say integer, right, number, we can only hold one number. I want to store multiple numbers, right? So we have one of the collection called a list. Okay, so I can say list. So I can say numbers, multiple numbers. But when you define list, list is like a class, right? Non-primitive. Right? For non-primitive type, we have to allocate the memory like this. So this is how we define a collection. Into this, we have to add multiple values. So one of the ways, so maybe for now, no need to bother if you don't know this syntax. I'll in detail explain when we start about the collections topic. For now, just for our understanding, I'm defining one of the collection for our demo purpose. Okay. Now let's say this is a integer collection having 3 numbers. Now if you want to iterate over that, iterate over each and every element. I don't want to bother about the index. So what we do, we use for. What is the collection data type? Right here, since I am taking integer, we can only add integer values. I cannot add a string value, something like that. Let's say if you have a requirement to add one integer value, one string value, one boolean value, something, you need to take the type as object. Okay. Anyway, so here we have integer type. Now, right hand side. So what is the collection name? We need to give. Left side, what is the collection data type? Integer. And what is the name we want to give for each element? Right? So these are multiple elements. For each element of type integer, whatever the name you want to give, you can give as a developer. Let's say I'm giving num. So that means what it will do, first time out of these 3 numbers, this num will hold 100. Second iteration, it will hold 400. Third iteration, 880. After that, there are no elements, it will stop. Right? So for each element, it will iterate. So that's why we say for each. And don't think that since I'm saying for each, so people are keeping like this. It's not like that. Okay, so we don't write each. This is the syntax. Okay, so here just I'm printing that number. So let's execute and see. Right now it print 100, 400, 880, like that in the results. Okay, so now just execute. $100, 400, 880. Yeah, so it is working. So these are the looping statements. Input, output, nothing to discuss more. Going forward, we discuss mainly when we have UI, the web page and the web page when you are interacting with the Apex class. So that time we need about the input and output type. For now, just as a developer perspective, when you use get keyword, it is for the output purpose. When we use set one of the keyword, it is for the input purpose. These things you will understand when we start developing the web pages. For now, just if you know this much, that is sufficient. So these are the different statements. So far we discussed about different statements. Tomorrow I will open some programs which are developed with the Apex programming language and see whether we are able to identify what are the statements and why they are using. We should be able to identify if you know this. Okay, I'll show some examples and after that, almost we are ready to write a program. But there is a concept called OOPS concept, object-oriented programming concept. Almost all modern languages follows OOPS concepts. Java, .NET, C++, all those languages are based on the object-oriented concepts. So we also need to know about those concepts. So we discuss those concepts, and I think slowly we also start developing the program. Tomorrow we deal with that. Today, before ending, so any questions, anyone?
Yes, Srini. In flows, when we were looking at flows, we used get records for input, right? So is this opposite of that? Like,
So get is input or output? Get means we are reading, right?
in flows, we used it to get the records, right? So,
Get means you are entering the value or you are getting the value. Get means you are
get
querying, right?
yeah.
Get means you are giving input, right? You are querying and using that whatever the output through the query. whatever it is giving, you are using,
Yeah.
right? So that is like a get. Okay, anyway, that is different. But when we develop with the start with the web page, that time you'll understand more. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So any other questions, anyone?
Srinivas?
Yeah.
Yeah, just wanted to ask, like, do we need to memorize all these syntax, or it will practice, will get to know about it, or we have to
Yeah.
learn each and
So
everything?
once you start doing the practice, I think you will remember. Okay. So these are the basics. Obviously, with some experience, you will remember these things. Okay. So for now, let's say if you did not remember, let's say you don't know what is the syntax of the for loop, right? What we do for loop in Apex example, right? At least if you see the code, if you are able to recognize how it works and use, at least that level, if you practice, I think we are good for now. Okay. Anyway, when you develop or when you start working, so no one asks write this and write this, right? So we take time, we copy, right? So if you see here, this is how it goes. Okay, copy this and do. Maybe in our example, you need to iterate over 100 times. Change this 10 to 100. So as soon as you understand the concept, syntax automatically you will remember. Otherwise, you refer documentation and use it. Okay. So 100% means it is not really when you are working. But when you attend interview, these basics, if you are not able to do, again they feel. So I think this person is not having more experience. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, with practice, you will remember. Okay. So any other questions?
Shrinu,
Yeah.
when we say the syntax, right? So when we are working on the editor, so do we get notification? Suppose in case if I missed some syntax or something has gone wrong, to notify us the so and so line is having error or something is missing, like we validate, right? That is available here, Shrinu.
Yeah. So obviously here I know syntax. I'm writing everything properly. If you miss something, it will throw error. It's unexpected token line number 1. I'm missing semicolon. Right. So if you do something wrong, obviously it will throw error. Okay. So still we did not start writing program. So that time we'll see all those things. So what are the errors we get at the time of saving the program? So what are the errors we get at the time of executing the program? We'll see all those things. We have time for that. Okay. And the suggestions if you want. Yeah. So obviously we use a code editor. So one of the code editor called Visual Studio Code. So going forward, I'll show you how we connect with this and work. But for Salesforce, it is cloud-based. It is not 100% required to have a editor like this. You can manage with the developer console, but if you use this tool, I think it is good. This tool is very good when compared to that. So obviously, when you write the code, it will also show. It will also say something is wrong. Okay, maybe for that, let me open one of the existing. Okay, so just I'm opening a simple program. So let's say this is a program. Right? If I do something wrong here, so while saving, it will throw error. Obviously, when we are in the flow, when you are typing, that time it will throw some errors. Already this is saved, it is not showing. So those things will be there. Okay. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, we'll continue tomorrow. Thank you.